In this video, I'll explain how to test for equality of all vector elements in the R programming language. So without too much talk, let's dive into the R code. So in this video, I will show you two examples, and both of these examples are based on the example vectors that we can create with lines 2 to 6 of the code. So in line 2 of the code, I'm creating the first vector element. So after running this line of code, you can see at the top right of RStudio that a new vector has been created, which is called vec1. And we can print this vector object to the bottom in the RStudio console by running line 3 of the code. So after running this line of code, you can see at the bottom that our first vector contains the values 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we can create another vector in line 5 of the code. So if you run this line of code, you can see that another vector object is appearing at the top right, which is called vec2. And we can print this vector to the bottom in the RStudio console as well by running line 6 of the code. So after running this line of code, you can see that our second vector contains the value 2 5 times. Now let's assume that we want to test in a structured way if all elements of a vector are the same. Then we can apply the var function, as you can see in line 8 of the code. So the var function stands for the variance of a data object. So if you apply this function to a vector object, the variance of this vector is returned. And if all elements of our vector are the same, the variance has to be equal to 0. So we can test if all elements of the vector are the same by specifying the logical condition var vec1 equal to 0. So if you run this line of code, you can see that at the bottom in the RStudio console, the logical indicator false is returned. And this tells us that the elements in the vector vec1 are not all equal. We can do the same in case of the second vector vec2, as you can see in line 10 of the code. So if you run this line of code, you can see that the logical indicator true is returned to the bottom in the RStudio console. So as we already know, all elements of the vector vec2 are equal. So all of these elements are equal to 2. Now in this first example, I have explained how to use the var function to return a logical indicator that tells us whether all elements of a vector are equal. So in the second example, I want to show you an alternative to the var function. And this alternative is based on the length and the unique functions, as you can see in lines 12 and 14 of the code. So if you run line 12 of the code, you can see that again the logical indicator false has been returned, which is telling us what we already know, that not all elements are the same in the vector vec1. And if you run line 14 of the code, we do the same for the second vector vec2. So if you run line 14 of the code, you can see that the logical indicator true is returned. So in this video, I have shown two alternatives on how to test for equality in a vector using the R programming language. However, in case you want to learn more on this topic, you could check out my homepage, statisticsglobe.com, because on my homepage I have recently published a tutorial in which I'm explaining the content of this video in some more detail, and I will put a link to this tutorial into the description of the video. Furthermore, if you have liked the video, I would be very happy if you leave me some positive feedback in the comments, and make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel to get notifications in future when I'm releasing new videos to the channel. That's it for this video. Thanks a lot. See you next time.